good morning students. Today we will discuss about optical isomerism. In the previous lecture we discussed stereoisomerism and various categories of different type of isomerism. We have seen that isomers, they are basically the chemical molecules which are having the same chemical formula, but difference is that they are having 3D orientation of the atoms that is different in the two isomers. So we call it a stereoisomer. In the case of optical isomerism, the special thing is that they are showing optical activity. So what is that optical activity, and what is the change that you can observe in the molecule merely due to a change in the 3D orientation of carbon? So let us discuss about the optical isomerism. This is a form of stereoisomerism, as I told you, and the difference between the two compound arises due to merely a change in the 3D orientation of atoms. So this optical isomerism, it occurs when the compounds have non-superimposable mirror image. So if you put your molecule along a mirror and you see the image of the molecule, and you put the image on the molecule, this image on the molecule itself, these two images, they will not superimpose each other. So what is this phenomena? We will discuss it more in the coming slides. So non-superimposable means when you are putting the image of this molecule on the molecule itself, it will not cover the molecule. And this is the thing, this is the asymmetry, and we call this asymmetry as chirality. So what is the chirality? Chirality arises due to the tetrahedral nature of carbon. We know that when carbon is having sp3 hybridization, it is having tetrahedral structure, and in the tetrahedral structure all the atoms, they are actually having an angle of 109 degrees between it. So what happens in such case? Am I audible? So what happens here, when such chirality exists in the molecule, it is having two different structures and two mirror images. They both are non-superimposable. So this phenomena is entirely due to the presence of asymmetry in the carbon, and the two different forms that we get after seeing the mirror image, we call it the enantiomers. So enantiomers are what? They are the two mirror image of the same molecule, and they are actually what? They are the optical isomers. Now they occur when the molecules, they have a chiral center. This occur when the molecule is having a chiral center. So what is a chiral center? A chiral center is what? It is containing an asymmetric carbon atom, and the asymmetric carbon, like I told you, it is the sp3 hybridized carbon containing the tetrahedral structure. So it has four different atoms or groups which are arranged tetrahedrally around it. So this chiral center is basically what? It is this carbon which is having tetrahedral structure. So an example is given here: 2-chlorobutane that exhibit optical mirror image is non-superimposable with the original molecule, and therefore what happens in such case, your molecule is having two enantiomers. So here the chiral center is what? It is an asymmetric carbon atom, and the asymmetric carbon atom is what? Containing the four different atoms or groups on all the four valencies. So if you have to identify a chiral center, if you have to identify the center of asymmetry in a molecule, then simply you will do what? You will find out what are the different atoms attached on four valencies of the carbon. And if they all are different, then you can say that yes, this is the chiral center. So this optical isomerism, it actually arises in the organic molecule that contain a carbon atom attached to four different atoms or groups. So this is the carbon atom, and it is on one side it is attached to the COOH, that is carboxylic acid, then hydrogen, CH3 and NH2. So all the four groups present on the carbon, they are different, and this becomes what? This is now optically active compound. What is this compound? This is alanine. Alanine is what? It is a type of amino acid. Amino acids are having the amino group and the acidic group together. The carboxylic acid group and amino group, they are present together, and the amino acid name is alanine. Now, when you look at the mirror image of this molecule, this is the actual molecule, and you are looking at the mirror image. So now, if you put this mirror image like this and put it over the original molecule, what will happen in this mirror image? Now you can see a blue sphere is here. So this blue sphere is what? This is the amino group. So when you try to superimpose this image on the original molecule, now on the in the place of hydrogen you are getting the amino group, and in the place of amino group you are getting the hydrogen. So you can easily see that the 3D arrangement has changed now, and these two mirror images, they are not same. As a result of this, this molecule becomes optically active. And what are the two different forms in which the molecule can exist? It is the D-alanine and L-alanine. So what is this D and L? We know that whenever the optical activity is present in the molecule, it has a peculiar tendency that it rotates the plane of polarized light in one direction. Maybe you have read this phenomena in your 12th class. So the plane of the polarized light, it has been rotated by the molecule itself. So one of the molecule is rotating it to the left side, and other is rotating it to the right side. So that is why we can identify two different molecules in this manner. So this D-alanine rotating the plane of polarized light in the right direction, and L-alanine rotating the plane into the left direction. So this is the optical activity. So see here, if a molecule has a chiral center, so this carbon becomes what? This is the chiral center, and it is not necessary that only one chiral center is present in a molecule. There could be number of chiral centers in a single molecule. Like in case of glucose, you can have 3 to 4 chiral centers, because 3 to 4 carbon atom, they may contain different groups attached to it. So, if a molecule, suppose it has a chiral center in its structure, it will have two mirror image, two different type of arrangements are possible in the space, and these two mirror images, they are what? They are the non-superimposable mirror images. If you put this image on the original molecule, they are not similar. So what happens now? They are now the optical isomers, and you call them enantiomers. Now these are optical isomers, they rotate the plane polarized light in the opposite direction. So if this one is rotating it in the right side, this is rotating in the left side. So that rotation of light, now please note it that the amount of rotation is similar, only the sign is changed. Both the molecules, the D-alanine and L-alanine, the amount of rotation is same for both the molecules, but in the different directions, in the opposite directions. So one rotates the light clockwise and other anti-clockwise. So a mixture containing the equal amount of each isomer is called a racemic mixture. If you have a mixture of the alanine containing 50% D form and 50% L form, then you will call it what? It will be a racemic mixture. Now in the racemic mixture, because the D form and L form, they both are in the equal quantity, what will happen? The D will rotate it in the right side, L will rotate in the left side. Now both are equal. So what happens? When they are in the 50-50 ratio, your mixture will show no optical activity. So If you see the net rotation, there is no rotation because of the two different rotations in the opposite direction to the similar amount. So overall, in a racemic mixture, there is no effect on the plane polarized light, and the two rotations, they cancel out each other. So now look at in deep what is optical isomerism. So we just see that we have a chiral center, which is a carbon, tetrahedral carbon, and it is containing four different groups. And when you look at the mirror image of the carbon, which is having asymmetry. Asymmetry is four different groups on the carbon. So when you take the mirror image, now you see this is the molecule, and this is your mirror, and this is the mirror image. So in the mirror image, what happens? In the place of amino, you are seeing the carboxylic acid group. So these are what? They are non-superimposable. In the place of amino here, this is carboxylic acid. So again, the molecules are non-superimposable. So this is what? This is the optically active compound. And the center carbon is called what? Chiral. So this is essentially, chirality is what? It is essentially the characteristic of a tetrahedral carbon, which is containing four different groups on all the four valencies. So it becomes optically active. So again, the similar thing is shown in the slide here. The chiral molecules have no plane of symmetry. So you can see this is the isomer 1 and this is your isomer 2. They both are the mirror image of each other. And both the mirror images, they are non-superimposable. So you can understand this concept by taking your hands. If you see the mirror image of your hand, they both are what? They are non-superimposable. So you can compare your hands by putting them like this, and you can imagine an imaginary plane, imaginary mirror between the two hands. So both of your hands, they are what? They are the two mirror images which are non-superimposable to each other. Like I'm showing you here, look at here. This is the molecule and this is the mirror image, right? Now if you put your image like this on your molecule, they are not superimposing, right? They are having two different groups in different directions. So this is my molecule, this is the image, and if you put it like this, they are not superimposing each other. So you call it what? You call them enantiomers. So this is the phenomena of optical activity. Now let us understand the different terminologies involved here. So first thing is you have enantiomers. So what are enantiomers? They have opposite configuration at each chiral center. So what happens now? The whole molecule, it becomes a mirror image. So enantiomers are what? They are the mirror image, non-superimposable mirror image. The two isomers having the structure, they are mirror image of each other. So they are the enantiomers. But there is another possibility. You can have diastereomers as well. And what are diastereomers? So they have the opposite configuration at some, but not all the chiral center. So you cannot say that two diastereomers are mirror image of each other. Yes, they have different configuration in the three-dimensional space if you compare the two diastereomers, but they are not the mirror image. So you call them, still they are the stereoisomers, still they are stereoisomers, but they are not enantiomers. So please remember this thing. Enantiomers are always and always they are the mirror images. These two isomers, they should be the mirror image of each other. But diastereomers, yes, they are the stereoisomers, but they are not the mirror image of each other. So understand this by taking the example here. Here you can see in the molecule we have two chiral centers, right? This one is the chiral center because it is containing four different groups on four different valencies, and on this carbon also this is the what? This is also your chiral center. So we have two chiral center, two asymmetric center in the molecule. Now, if you look at the compound number 2, if you can imagine a mirror between these two molecules, so this compound is the mirror image of this compound, right? You can imagine a mirror here. In the mirror, what happens? The group near to the mirror will appear first, right? And the group which is far from the mirror will appear far to the mirror. So in this manner, these two molecules, they are the mirror images of each other. So what we will call them enantiomers, having the opposite configuration at both the chiral center. So we have two chiral center and both the chiral center. You can see that the OH groups they are present on the right side here, and in this molecule OH are present on the left side. So both the chiral centers they are containing the opposite configuration, and you can imagine that these two are the mirror image of each other. So what we will call them? We will call them enantiomers. But yet another type of configuration is possible. Like on one of the carbon atom, the configuration is similar, but on the other carbon atom, it is reversed. So now, if you compare these two compounds, or the compound 1 and 3 or 2 and 3, if you compare these compounds, you can see that the 3D configuration is different on one of the carbon atom, right? But they are not the mirror image. So compound 1 and compound 3 they are not the mirror image. Compound 2 and 3 they are also not the mirror image. So now you call them what? They will be the diastereomers. So they have the opposite configuration at only one chiral center. So I hope now this concept is clear to you. What are the enantiomers and what are the diastereomers? So if you have to write it in your examination, then you have to take examples. Then only it is possible to explain the concept clearly. So please remember the examples. In the enantiomers, you have opposite configuration at all the chiral centers, right? Then what will happen? The other compound will be the mirror image of it. But in the diastereomers, only one chiral center this is having opposite configuration, and therefore the two compounds they are not the mirror image, and we call them diastereomers. Now let us try to find out the chiral centers in a molecule. Spotting chiral center. So you have to look at each carbon atom in the chain and see what are attached to it. And we know that for a chiral center, you need an asymmetric carbon with four different atoms or groups arranged tetrahedrally around it. So, if a carbon has more than one of any atom or group attached, it cannot be chiral. So, this is the condition. When you will see the chiral carbon, when all the four groups attached, all the four groups are different. So now let us identify whether a molecule is optically active or not. You can actually identify a molecule whether it is optically active or not by merely looking at the structure of the molecule. You need not to perform any experiment that you are putting that compound in the plain polarized light and then you are observing whether it is rotating it or not. That is a lengthy procedure. So let us check the optical activity merely by looking at the structure of the molecule. So the first compound you can see here. You can see here this is the compound, and if I look at all the carbon atoms, let us identify if any of these carbon atom is chiral in nature. So the first carbon which is red here, it is containing three hydrogens around it, so it cannot be a chiral carbon. Then the second blue carbon, it is having two hydrogens around it, so it is also not chiral. Then third carbon, again having two hydrogen, and fourth carbon also containing two hydrogen. This is my 1-chlorobutane, and none of the carbon atom on this compound they are not chiral. None of the carbon is chiral. So I can deduce that this compound is optically inactive, right? For a compound to be optically active, there should be at least one chiral carbon atom. So this is what this compound is optically inactive. Then see the second example. This is 2-chlorobutane. Now, what have changed here? Just the position of this chloro group is changed, and now it is attached to the central carbon atom, carbon number 3. So again, now compare the group. So on the first carbon atom, red carbon, we have 3 hydrogen, not chiral. Second carbon, 2 hydrogen, it is not chiral. Then third carbon. Now, if you look at the third carbon carefully, what are the groups attached to it? So on one side you have a CH3 attached, then you have a hydrogen, one chlorine and an ethyl group, that is C2H5. So now what happens? All the four groups they are different. on this carbon number 3, green color carbon, you have 4 different groups attached, and now you can say that yes, this is a chiral carbon because all the 4 groups are different. So, because of the presence of this chiral carbon, now we can say that this molecule is optically active. So, because of the presence of this asymmetric center, my molecule becomes optically active. So, the 1 chlorobutane and 2 chlorobutane, they are just the positional isomers of each other, right? And this 2 chlorobutane is optically active and 1 chlorobutane is optically inactive. So, this is the type of structural isomerism between these two molecules. But in the 2 chlorobutane itself, we can observe the optical isomerism. Now, again, we are changing the position, preparing another structural isomer of this compound. So, we get 1 chloro 2 methyl propane, and you can see that all the carbons, they have 3 or 2 hydrogens around it, so they are not chiral. And similarly, another structural isomer is formed here, 2 chloro 2 methyl propane. So here you can see the 2 carbon atoms, they are all containing similar groups. So therefore, no carbon atom is chiral and molecule is optically inactive. So now look at the difference. What is the difference in these two optical isomers? So the optical isomers, they differ in their reaction to the plane polarized light. Whenever you are subjecting them to the plane polarized light, their behavior will be different. So, what will be the difference in their behavior? One isomer will rotate the plane polarized light in one direction and other will rotate it in the other direction. So, the amount would be the same, but the direction will be just opposite to each other. So, this is their behavior to the plane polarized light. Now, what is plane polarized light? So, this we know that a plane polarized light, it is having vibrations in all the directions. So generally what happens, the natural light, it is not polarized. It is having the vibrations in all the possible directions. So that is the natural light. But when you pass it through a filter, when you pass it through a slit, what happens? Only the vibrations in the single direction, they are allowed through the slit. And in this manner, you get a plane polarized light. So a plane polarized light, it is having the vibration in single direction only. So when such light is falling on an optically active molecule, the molecule, due to the asymmetry present in it, it can rotate the light in either of the direction. Okay, so if it is rotating in the right direction, so you call it clockwise, and if it is rotating in the left side, so you call it anti-clockwise rotation. So this rotation you can measure by observing the polarized light coming out towards the observer. This is a very particular experiment that we used to perform in physics. We have an instrument called polarimeter. And in the polarimeter, you are putting your optically active substance inside the tube, and then you pass the plane polarized light through your sample, and then you adjust the observer's lens from where light is coming, and then you measure the angle by which that rotation is taking place. So it is not only the direction that matters, but angle also matters, and that angle, this is measuring the amount of optical rotation. So when you are seeing the optical activity, you are not only looking at the direction of the rotation, but also you are measuring the angle of your rotation. So if the light appears to have turned to the right, you call it dextrorotatory. And if it is turned to the left, you call it levorotatory. So when the optical isomer is turning the light to the right side, this is dextrorotatory, and you call it D form or plus form. D or plus, they means your molecule is rotating the light in the right direction. And the other isomer, it will turn the light in the left direction, so you call it levorotatory, and a prefix L or minus is attached before the actual name. So this is the DL denotion of optical isomerism, small d and small l. If you remember, we also have one nomenclature system, capital D and capital L. So we will discuss that later. Uh, Here, by D and L, you are merely denoting the direction of the light in which the light is turning. Then the racemate, we know that in the racemate mixture we have 50-50% of the two enantiomers D and L. So when they are present in the equal quantity, the total rotation, the net rotation of the plane polarized light, it will be similar, and they both will cancel out, and there will be no optical activity. Even when you have optical isomer present in your mixture, there will be no optical activity because in both the direction the rotation they will cancel out. So examples, let us see the examples. Optical activity is very common in biochemistry and pharmaceuticals. And if you remember, in the first lecture of this unit, I have shown you the drug molecules, how drug molecules are so selective for their receptor, how the stereochemistry of a drug molecule is very important, and the D form of a drug is active, biologically active, and L form of the similar drug is biologically inactive. So this stereochemistry matters a lot when it comes to the biochemistry, that is the chemistry of the molecule in biological system, and also the pharmaceuticals when we are talking about the drugs. Then we know that most amino acids, they exhibit optical activity. Like the example I have just shown you, alanine. Alanine is the amino acid having a carbon atom, and the carbon atom is having four different groups. So this alanine can be in the D form and L form both. So generally amino acids, they are containing the carboxylic acid group and also the amino group. So they are optically active. Many drugs, they must be made of one optical isomer to be effective. Like I told you, their biological activity depends on the stereochemistry. Then you need the smaller doses, that is safer and cost effective if you are using the correct optical isomer of a drug. Otherwise, that drug would be ineffective. And in that case also you will get the lesser side effects, and the pharmacological activity will be enhanced. So that is all the part of the stereochemistry of a drug molecule. It is very important that you are using the correct optical isomer of a drug molecule. Then this was the thing I was telling you. Light normally vibrates in the many different directions. So this is the natural light, unpolarized light, and you can see these arrows in all the directions. So normally light is having vibration in all the directions. The plane polarized light only vibrates in one direction. So when you are passing it through the filter, now as a result you have polarized light having vibrations only in the one direction, right? Now this is the polarizer which blocks out the light waves in all the other planes, and only plain polarized light passes through it. So this polarizer is what? It is like a filter, and it is filtering the all the other possible vibrations only, and it leaves only one type of vibration in the light. So when you are passing the natural light or unpolarized light to the polarizer, you get a polarized light after this. So only the plain polarized light passes through it, and now a pure solution of enantiomer rotate the plane polarized light in opposite direction. So that enantiomer, suppose you have put it here in the tube, and now you can see this arrow, it is rotating in one direction. So earlier it was a straight arrow. Now if you see the light coming out through this tube, it is having a certain orientation, having an angle with the initial part. So that is the actual rotation done by your enantiomer. And when the observer watch this, he can actually find out that light has been rotated by the enantiomer. So this is the structure of a typical polarimeter, and this is the instrument by which we measure the amount of rotation. So this rotation you are detecting using a polarimeter. The analyzer is the second polarizer. And this is your analyzer, and this is what? It is again a polarizer, and you're detecting the rotation of the light using this. extent and direction of the rotation can be deduced. So you can actually measure the angle by which that rotation has been done. Now, if you're comparing the optical activity of two different solutions, then you need to have the same concentration of both the solutions. You should use the light of the same wavelength and the same sample path. What is sample path? That is actually your sample container. So you should use the same sample container. Two solutions, they should have the similar concentration and also the similar type of light you should use. So look at here. This is the plane polarized light in one direction. This is my chiral sample when the light is passing through it. Now you can see there has been rotation in the plane of the light, and now it is the rotated light forming an angle with the initial direction of the light. This was the initial direction, and this is the direction after you have passed it through the chiral sample. This angle theta is actually what? It is measuring the amount of rotation in your molecule. So reactivity with other chiral molecules. So we know that the left rotation is, we are denoting it by minus, and the right rotation we are denoting by plus. Now we know that in the racemic mixture we have the two different isomers, the plus and minus form in exactly the same proportion, and these products they have a distinct chemical and physical properties. So when you are going to separate them, when you have to separate the D and L form from a racemic mixture, how will you do that? You can separate it easily only by using the methods like resolution. So resolution is what? It is the process in which you are separating the two enantiomers from their mixture. So again, this is your plane polarized light passing through the chiral molecule and observing a rotation by alpha. So what is this alpha? Alpha is your specific rotation. So you can measure the specific rotation by using the polarimeter tube. And if it is in the clockwise direction, like I told you, in the right direction, you call it plus or D, and in the counterclockwise direction, you call it a minus. So in this diagram, one very typical thing you can notice that on the left side it is showing plus, and on the right side it is showing minus. But what I am telling you, on the right side it is D form plus, and on the left side it is minus. So how can you explain this situation? Why the opposite signs are written here? Because the observer is looking to this light from that direction. The observer is not observer is away from the screen, right? It is on that side of the polarimeter, but we are looking from this side of the polarimeter. That is why the reverse sign you can see. But if you put yourself at the point of this observer, then you will notice that this part is your right hand side and this is your left hand side. So these DLN denotions, they are actually different from the absolute RS configuration. We will also discuss the RNS configuration in the next lecture. Now see the optical activity or rotation. So that rotation that we are measuring in the polarimeter, this says us about the optical activity of the molecule, how optically active this molecule is. So you can measure this by measuring the rotation, the angle theta that I was telling you. So this angular rotation observed in the polarimeter, it depends upon many things. What are the factors affecting the angular rotation? So first is the optical activity of the compound. What is the optical activity of compound? If it is having the D form or the L form, so rotating the light in the left direction or right direction. Then your concentration of sample. So concentration of sample, like I told you, it should be similar if you are comparing the two solutions. Why? Because more the concentration of your substance, more will be that rotation. Then the path length of the sample cell, this is also affecting the amount of rotation. So the longer the light has to travel through a solution, greater will be the rotation because it will be rotated like this every time. So These are the three factors when you are comparing the two solutions. If suppose if you are comparing the optical activity of two different isomers, so you need to put up other all the other factor constant. You need to keep the concentration of the solution constant and path length of the sample set. So after doing that, when you will observe the rotation of these two solutions through the polarimeter, what you are getting? You are getting the specific rotation. And this specific rotation, which we are calling as alpha, this is the characteristic physical property of an optically active compound. So specific rotation, some conditions have been already mentioned, like the rotation that is observed using a 10 centimeter sample set. So we have made our path length constant. The sample cell will be of only the 10 centimeter dimension, so the path length will be constant here. Then the concentration should be 1 gram per ml. And when you have put these conditions in your experiment, then the optical activity you are measuring will be your specific rotation, which we denote by alpha. What is the formula here? This alpha is equal to specific rotation is equal to alpha observed upon C into L. So alpha is the specific rotation. Then alpha observed is the rotation observed for a specific sample. That is the angle you are observing in the experiment. L is the path length and C is the concentration. So yes, this is the this we have already discussed. What is the racemic mixture? A 50-50% ratio of the two enantiomers, and it becomes optically inactive because we are taking the D and L form in exact quantity. The alpha is zero for racemic mixture. This could be a very interesting question. What is the value of alpha for a racemic mixture? So it is always zero. So, a sample that is optically inactive can be either an achiral substance, maybe the optical activity is not present in the molecule, or there is a possibility that it is a racemic mixture. Now, when you are measuring the optical rotation, when you are measuring the specific rotation, that is a constant for a particular molecule. And by performing that experiment, we can find out the optical purity of the substance. Now, like we discussed that in the racemic mixture, our D and L form, they are in the 50-50% ratio. But yes, it is possible that if your D form is in the 70% amount and L form is in the 30% amount. So when you will pass the light through this sample, the overall rotation will be in the right direction. Then it is possible that L form is greater in quantity than the D form. So what will happen? You will see an overall rotation in the left direction. So generally, these enantiomers, it is not possible that you are getting a pure enantiomer in the nature. In natural substances, D and L form, they are mixed together. But they are showing some overall optical activity because their ratio is not similar. The D and L form, they are not in the exactly equal quantity. So you actually see certain amount of rotation when you are performing the polarimeter experiment. So how will you find out the optical purity of a substance? Optical purity of a enantiomer. So an optically pure substance consists exclusively a single enantiomer. So optical purity is what? When I have 100% D form, when I have 100% L form, so I call it optically pure sample, optically pure enantiomer. So, like suppose take the example of glucose. Glucose is a very important carbohydrate. It is present in our body, and generally in our body we are having D-glucose. The glucose that you are consuming in the summers, people used to put the glucose boxes in their fridge. So that glucose, if you see carefully at the box, it is D-glucose. So the D-glucose, it is not always that you are getting glucose in the D form. Rather, you have to actually extract the glucose in D form. It is actually enantiomeric mixture of D and L form. So what we do, we perform the enantiomeric separation and we extract the D and L glucose from each other. So in that case, it is possible that you can find out the optical purity of the substance. So how will you do that? Like suppose in the D-glucose sample I have taken, I performed the experiment. I found that 70% D form is present and 30% L form is present. So what will be the enantiomeric axis? It will be 40%. I'm repeating it. If 70% D form is present in the glucose sample and 30% L form, so 70 minus 30, it will be 40%. So what will be your enantiomeric axis? It will be 40%. So when you will pass the light through this sample, what will happen? The sample will rotate the light in right direction because you have the excess of D form, and therefore what will happen? The rotation in the two direction, it will not cancel out. Rather, due to the excess of one enantiomer, you will see overall rotation in one direction only. So you may be confused that this sample is rotating the light in the right direction, so I guess this is the D form. So this is not the case, because that rotation is actually due to the enantiomeric axis. So your sample is not optically pure. You need to establish that purity. So some mixtures, they are neither optically pure, that is all one enantiomer, and they are not racemic. Like I told you, if the 50-50% ratio is not there, then in that case your sample is not optically pure and it is also not racemic. So in that case, you have to find out the optical purity of the sample. So look at this formula. Optical purity is observe the specific rotation that you are getting from that sample, right? You will put that sample in the polarimeter and you will observe the rotation. Then this is divided by the specific rotation of the pure enantiomer. So in this manner you will get the optical purity. So it's also a formula. Then we have a percentage enantiomeric excess. So what is the formula? Excess of a single enantiomer divided by the entire mixture into 100%. So this is another formula for getting the enantiomeric excess. Now let us solve an example here. The question I have given is minus 2 butanol has a specific rotation of minus 13.5 degree and a specific rotation of plus. So this is the L form, right? Minus butanol, minus 2 butanol is the L form and plus 2 butanol is the D form. So the rotation is similar, right? Specific rotation is minus 13.5 for the L form and plus 13.5 for the D form. Now you have to calculate the optical purity of a mixture which contains plus and minus both the forms, but you do not know in what amount they are present, right? You do not know. What you know is the two constant values, that the L form is rotating light in the minus 13.5 degree and D form is rotating in the plus 13.5 degree. So now you have to calculate the optical purity. So what you did, you performed the polarimeter experiment and you observed the rotation of the sample. So when you performed the experiment, you came to know that the rotation, observed rotation of your sample is minus 8.55 degrees. So now you have to find out, does the mixture contain more plus form or more minus form? Which form is present in the enantiomeric axis? So here you will find out the optical purity. So you will put the value of the sample divided by minus L, okay, into 100%. So 63.3% is the optical purity, and which one is present in the axis? Minus form is present in axis, right? That is why you are getting the direction in the minus sign, right? Because the L form is having the minus sign of angle, and if in the overall sample you are getting this sign, minus sign, so your L form is present in axis, and 63.3% is the optical purity of this minus L form of the butanol. So what does it mean? 63.3%. It says that your L form, L butanol, that is minus 2 butanol, it is 63.3% in the sample, and remaining all is your plus 2 butanol. So it is present in the excess, the L form. So in this manner, you can you can calculate the optical activity of a sample. Now these points I have already discussed. What is the racemic mixture and what are the enantiomers? We have seen these things. We have also discussed about the chirality, that is the stereogenic center and the enantiomers. Yes. Now look at the mesomer. What is the mesomer? Symmetric optical isomer is called a mesomer. So in this structure you can see, if you put an imaginary plane here, so these two parts of the molecule, they are the mirror image of each other. You can divide this molecule into two equal halves by this imaginary axis. So this is having a symmetry inside, and whenever a molecule is having symmetry, it becomes optically inactive. So a symmetric molecule is optically inactive, and we call them as mesomer. So mesomer is what? If a molecule has two or more similar carbon, the mesomer is optically inactive. It has the opposite superimposable mirror image and opposite configuration of two carbons. So you call it a mesomer. And these meso compounds are optically inactive because one part of the molecule rotates the light in one direction and other part rotates it in the opposite direction. So when the light is passing through such molecule, the overall rotation is zero. So you can say that they are showing the internal compensation of this rotation, because the two different parts of the molecule, they are rotating the light in two different directions in the opposite direction equal amount. The cause of optical inactivity of the mesomer is internal compensation. Now we have discussed that what are the diastereomers. So these are the two optical isomers which are not mirror image of each other. So these are the examples. The first and second, they are the enantiomers. If you look at them carefully, they are the mirror image. Then third and fourth, they are also the mirror image of each other. But first is the diastereomer of third and fourth, and second is also the diastereomer of third and fourth, because they are not the mirror image. So 1, 2, 3, 4, they are the enantiomer. 1, 3, 4 are diastereomers. 2, 3, 4 are also diastereomers. Now, when you separate the two different forms from a racemic mixture, you call it the process of resolution. So, in the mixture of in a natural sample, you have both the D and L form mixed, and now you want only one enantiomer. Like in the mixture of the glucose, in the natural sample, I have a mixture of D and L form of the glucose, but I require only the D form. So, how will I separate it? This will be by the process of resolution. So what is resolution? You are getting only one enantiomer out of a sample, and we have different methods for it. So first is the mechanical separation. How will you separate it? So in the crystalline form of these two enantiomers, you can separate it. So you can actually watch the crystals with the help of a glass, a lens, magnifying lens, and then hand picking can be done. So this is the mechanical separation. Like you are seeing the two different crystals in two different directions. So by taking the magnifying glass, you look at them, you find out the orientation manually, and then you choose one of the crystals. So this mechanical separation, you know that this is not feasible process, but yes, D and L form of sodium ammonium tartrate, they are actually separated by this one. But you know, my mechanical separation, it is very having a very limited applications, because it is not possible that every time you are taking a magnifying glass and separating two type of crystals. So we have other methods like the biochemical separation. So in the biochemical separation, some certain bacteria or microorganism is taken, which selectively destroy one of the enantiomer, and the remaining left is what? That will be the another enantiomer. Suppose the bacteria is actively consuming the L glucose. So after some time, when all the L glucose is consumed by the bacteria, you will get the D glucose. But again, this process is very slow, because the bacterial activity, it takes time to complete, and only a small amount of mixture can be separated. You cannot rely on bacteria if you need to separate a huge quantity of the sample. The last method is the chemical separation, and it is very effective method, because the two enantiomers, they are having two different properties. So uh, in this method, what is done? The racemic mixture is combined with another optically active compound, and the resulting product differ in the properties, particularly in solubility in the various solvent. So what you take one solvent, and You separate the two enantiomers by dissolving them selectively. So this is the isomerism in lactic acid. You can see that four different groups are present on the carbon atom. This is D-lactic acid and this is the L-lactic acid. These are the two enantiomers, and when they are mixed in some proportion, you get DL lactic acid. So in the DL lactic acid, both the D and L form, they are present in certain proportion. This is the optical isomerism in tartaric acid. So we have a two stereogenic center here, and in the tartaric acid, because the two carbons are present, so this is the D form and this is the L form. They are the enantiomers of each other, right? Now this is the question for you. You have to solve it. Please take a screenshot of this numerical, and this is your quiz from today's lecture. There's also a question for you. Please take a screenshot of it. You have to solve it by yourself. So these are the references from today's lecture. Thank you so much.